The plan was dangerous but simple. The FBI would leak information that the sisters were being moved to a new safe house. During the transfer, they would be in 3 separate vehicles, appearing vulnerable. But each car would be filled with armed agents. The sisters would use their connection to coordinate, to sense if Marcus was near. The next evening, they prepared for the operation. Sarah sat in the back of an SUV between 2 agents, her sisters in identical vehicles ahead and behind. As they drove through the quiet streets, she closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, feeling for her sisters. The connection was stronger than ever. She could sense Isabella's determined calm and Maria's protective fury. They were 3 parts of a whole, finally united. Suddenly, Sarah felt a disturbance, like a discord in their harmony. "He's here," she said aloud. 2 blocks east, multiple vehicles. The agents relayed the information, and within seconds, the trap was sprung. FBI vehicles converged from all directions. There was shouting, the screech of tires, but no shots fired. Marcus Garrison, faced with overwhelming force, surrendered without a fight. Sarah watched through the window as they arrested him. He was younger than she expected, wild-eyed and desperate. As they put him in handcuffs, he looked directly at their vehicle. "You don't understand?" He shouted, "You're special. You're proof of human evolution. Don't let them make you ordinary." But the sisters understood perfectly. They were special, but not because of a mad scientist's experiments. They were special because they had found each other, because they had chosen to protect each other, because love was stronger than any genetic manipulation. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of trials, testimonies, and media attention. The Genesis Foundation was dismantled completely. Other victims were found and reunited with their families. The triplets became symbols of survival and hope. 6 months later, Sarah stood in Isabella's backyard, watching Maria's children play on the swing set they had installed. The yellow house with the red door from their shared dream had become reality. Isabella had bought it for all of them to share, a place where they could be together whenever they wanted. "I sometimes think about that morning at the bus stop," Sarah said to her sisters. "If I had waited for the bus instead of walking, we might never have met." Isabella wrapped an arm around her. "But you didn't wait. You made a choice, and it changed everything." Maria joined them, her children's laughter filling the air. "The best choice," she agreed. They stood together, 3 women who had been separated by lies and brought together by truth. The connection they shared went beyond genetics or experiments. It was the connection of family, chosen and cherished, stronger than any force that had tried to keep them apart. Sarah thought about all the choices that had led to this moment, her decision to walk that morning, to help a crying stranger, to seek the truth no matter how dangerous. Each choice had been a step toward this, a complete family, a mystery solved, and a future where they would never be separated again. Dr. Garrison had been wrong about many things, but he had been right about one. They were connected. Not because of his experiments, but because that's what sisters are. Connected by heart, by choice, by love. And that connection, Sarah knew, was the most powerful force of all. Sarah Martinez never imagined that one ordinary Tuesday morning would completely transform her life. She stood at the bus stop, checking her phone for the 3rd time, wondering if she should wait for the delayed bus or walk to work. The autumn air was crisp in downtown Chicago, and she pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders. 28 years old, working as a nurse at the local hospital, Sarah had always lived a predictable life. She liked it that way. Structure meant safety, and safety meant peace. The bus was now 15 minutes late. Sarah glanced at her watch and made a decision that would change everything. She would walk. It was only 20 minutes to the hospital, and she enjoyed the exercise. As she turned away from the bus stop, she noticed a woman sitting on a nearby bench, crying quietly into her hands. Most people walked past without a second glance, but something made Sarah stop. The woman looked up, and Sarah gasped. It was like looking into a mirror. The same dark brown eyes, the same curved nose, even the same small scar above the left eyebrow from a childhood accident. But this woman wore expensive clothes, designer shoes, and jewelry that sparkled in the morning sun. Sarah's practical nurse scrubs, and comfortable sneakers suddenly felt very plain. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, sitting down beside the stranger who looked exactly like her. The woman wiped her tears and stared at Sarah in shock. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You look just like me. Who are you?" Sarah introduced herself, and the woman's eyes widened even more. "I'm Isabella Chen," she said. "This is impossible. We could be twins." They talked for several minutes, comparing birthdays. They were born on the same day, in the same year, but in different hospitals across the city. Isabella was adopted as a baby by a wealthy family. Sarah had grown up with her biological mother, who had passed away 5 years ago. Neither knew they had a sister. Isabella pulled out her phone and showed Sarah a photograph. "This is my sister Maria, my adopted sister, I mean. But look at her." Sarah's hands shook as she took the phone. The woman in the photo looked exactly like them. 3 identical faces, 3 separate lives. Triplets. They were triplets. "We need to find her," Sarah said immediately. "We need to meet her." Isabella nodded, but her face was troubled. "There's something you should know first. I wasn't crying because I was sad. I was crying because I'm scared. Someone has been following me for weeks. My husband thinks I'm paranoid, but I know someone is watching me. And now that I've found you, I think you might be in danger too." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Her quiet, predictable life suddenly felt very far away. "Why would anyone want to hurt us?" "I don't know," Isabella admitted. "But 2 days ago, I received this." She pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from her purse. Written in red ink were the words, "Stop looking for your sisters, or all 3 of you will pay the price." Sarah read the note twice, her mind racing. "But you weren't looking for us. This was just chance." "That's what scares me," Isabella said. "Someone knows about us. Someone has always known." Exchanged phone numbers and agreed to meet again the next day. Sarah walked to work in a daze, her mind spinning with questions. Who were her biological parents? Why were the triplets separated? And who was threatening them now? At the hospital, Sarah tried to focus on her patients. But her thoughts kept returning to Isabella and the mysterious third sister, Maria. During her lunch break, she searched online for any information about triplets separated at birth in Chicago 28 years ago. She found nothing. That evening, Sarah's phone rang. It was Isabella, and she sounded terrified. "Sarah, I think someone broke into my house while I was at work. Nothing was stolen, but things were moved. My husband's going to call the police, but I wanted to warn you. Please be careful." Sarah double-checked all her locks that night and barely slept. The next morning, she met Isabella at a coffee shop downtown. Isabella had brought more information, adoption papers, old photographs, and surprisingly, an address for Maria. "She lives just outside the city," Isabella explained. "I hired a private investigator yesterday. I know it seems fast, but I couldn't wait. He found her in just a few hours." Sarah studied the information. Maria Rodriguez worked as a teacher at an elementary school. She was married with 2 young children. Her life seemed normal, peaceful. Did she know about her sisters? Did she receive threatening notes too? "We should go see her," Sarah suggested. "Today, after I finish work," Isabella agreed, but she kept looking over her shoulder, checking every person who entered the coffee shop. Her fear was contagious, and soon Sarah found herself doing the same thing. That afternoon, they drove to Maria's school in Isabella's expensive car. They waited in the parking lot, watching children stream out of the building. Then they saw her. Maria walked out with a group of students, laughing at something one of them had said. She looked happy, carefree, unaware that her life was about to change. Sarah and Isabella looked at each other. Were they doing the right thing? Once they introduced themselves, Maria's life would never be the same. But they had already come this far. They waited until Maria had said goodbye to the last student and was walking to her car. Sarah's heart pounded as they approached. This was it. The moment that would bring 3 sisters together for the first time in 28 years. "Maria Rodriguez," Isabella called out. Maria turned around and her face went pale. She dropped her car keys, her hand flying to her mouth. "No," she whispered. "This can't be real. They told me you were dead. Both of you. They told me my sisters died at birth. 3 women stood in the school parking lot, staring at each other, mirrors of the same face, the same shock, the same dawning realization that everything they had been told about their lives was a lie. Maria's hands trembled as she picked up her dropped keys. She looked between Sarah and Isabella, tears streaming down her face. They told me you died, she repeated. My adoptive parents said there were complications during birth. They said I was the only survivor. The 3 sisters found themselves in a small diner near the school, sitting in a corner booth where they could talk privately. Maria called her husband to say she would be late, her voice shaking as she tried to sound normal. The waitress who brought their coffee did a double take, clearly confused by the 3 identical women. Start from the beginning, Maria said, gripping her coffee cup tightly. Tell me everything. Sarah and Isabella shared their story of meeting just yesterday, the threatening note, and the break-in at Isabella's house. As they talked, Maria's face grew paler and paler. This explains so much, Maria finally said. Last week I got a phone call. The person didn't say anything, just breathing on the other end. It happened 3 times. And my daughter said she saw a man taking pictures of our house. I thought she was imagining things. Isabella pulled out her phone. We need to be smart about this. Someone separated us for a reason, and now they don't want us together. But why? Sarah had been thinking the same thing. What if our biological parents were important? What if there's money involved, or some kind of inheritance? Maria shook her head. My adoptive parents aren't wealthy. They run a small grocery store. They could barely afford to raise me. If this was about money, why would they give me to a poor family? Unless they didn't know, Isabella suggested. What if whoever separated us lied to everyone? What if our adoptive parents are victims too? They decided to meet again the next day at Sarah's apartment. It seemed safer than public places where anyone could be watching. That night, Sarah called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. She spent hours online, searching for any record of triplets born in Chicago. Hospitals on their birthday. Nothing. It was as if they had never existed. The next morning, both Isabella and Maria arrived at Sarah's small apartment, looking exhausted and scared. Isabella brought her laptop and files from the private investigator. Maria had something even more interesting. An old box of documents her adoptive mother had kept. I told my mom I was doing genealogy research, Maria explained. She doesn't know about you 2 yet. I couldn't tell her over the phone. But she gave me this box. Look at this. She pulled out a faded document. It wasn't an official adoption certificate, but a handwritten agreement. The signature at the bottom was smudged, but they could make out a name. Dr. Theodore Garrison. That name sounds familiar, Isabella said, typing rapidly on her laptop. Her face went white as she read. Oh my God. Dr. Theodore Garrison was a fertility doctor in Chicago. He lost his medical license in 2001 for conducting illegal experiments. He was trying to create genetically enhanced babies. Sarah felt sick. You think we were experiments? Look at this, Isabella continued reading. He was particularly interested in identical multiples. He believed triplets and quadruplets held the key to understanding genetic enhancement. Several families sued him, claiming he had implanted them with embryos without consent. Maria was searching through her box frantically. Here, she pulled out a medical bracelet, the kind newborns wear in hospitals. It was tiny, faded, but they could still read the inscription, Baby C Project Genesis. The room fell silent. Project Genesis. They weren't just triplets. They were part of something bigger, something that someone still wanted to keep secret. We need to go to the police, Sarah said finally. But Isabella was shaking her head. With what? We have no real evidence of a crime. Just threats and weird coincidences. They'll think we're crazy. Maria's phone buzzed. She looked at it and gasped. It's a text from an unknown number, she read aloud. You've dug too deep. Walk away now, or your children will grow up without a mother. That's it, Isabella said, standing up. They're threatening Maria's kids. We need to find out who's doing this and why. Sarah thought quickly. Dr. Garrison? Is he still alive? Isabella checked. He died 5 years ago. But his assistant, Dr. Emma Walsh, she's still practicing. She has a clinic about an hour from here. They looked at each other. It was dangerous, but they had no choice. They had to know the truth. The drive to Dr. Walsh's clinic was tense. Sarah drove while Isabella watched for anyone following them. Maria sat in the back, clutching her phone, ready to call 911 if needed. The clinic was a small, modern building in a suburban medical complex. They walked in together, and the receptionist's eyes widened, seeing three identical women. "We need to see Dr. Walsh," Isabella said firmly. "Tell her it's about Dr. Garrison and Project Genesis." The receptionist disappeared into the back. Minutes later, an older woman emerged. Dr. Emma Walsh was in her 60s, with gray hair and tired eyes. When she saw the triplets, she gripped the doorframe for support. "I knew this day would come," she said quietly. "Come to my office." Quickly. They followed her down a hallway lined with medical certificates and baby photos. Her office was neat, professional, but Sarah noticed her hand shaking as she locked the door behind them. "You were baby A, B, and C," Dr. Walsh said, looking at them each in turn. "I remember the day you were born. I was young then, just starting my career. I thought Dr. Garrison was a genius. I didn't know what he was really doing until it was too late."
"What was he doing?"
Sarah demanded. Dr. Walsh sat heavily in her chair. "Your biological mother came to our clinic for help conceiving. She was told she would likely have one baby, maybe twins if she was lucky. But Dr. Garrison had other plans. He used experimental fertility drugs, genetic manipulation. He wanted to create perfect, identical triplets." "Why?" Maria asked. "He believed identical siblings shared a psychic connection. He thought if he could enhance this connection through genetic manipulation, could prove that human consciousness was linked at a quantum level. You three were his proof." Isabella laughed bitterly. "So were science experiments. You're human beings," Dr. Walsh corrected. "That's why I eventually helped expose him. But by then, you had already been separated and adopted. He convinced three desperate families that they were saving orphaned babies. Your biological mother. She died during childbirth. The drugs he gave her were too strong." Sarah felt tears stinging her eyes. Their mother had died because of a mad scientist's ambitions. "Who's threatening us now?" Maria asked. "Garrison is dead." Dr. Walsh looked frightened. "His son Marcus Garrison. He believes his father was a misunderstood genius. He's been trying to restart Project Genesis for years. When he found out you three were still alive and in the same city, he became obsessed. He thinks if he can study you together, he can vindicate his father's work." "So he's been watching us," Isabella said. "More than watching," Dr. Walsh admitted. "He has followers, people who believe in his father's theories. They call themselves the Genesis Foundation. They're dangerous, well-funded, and completely devoted to continuing the experiments." Sarah stood up, anger replacing her fear. "We're not lab rats. We're not going to let him use us." Dr. Walsh opened a drawer and pulled out a flash drive. "This contains everything, all the original research, the real adoption documents, evidence of the illegal experiments. I've kept it hidden for 20 years, waiting for you to find each other. Take it to the FBI. It's the only way to stop Marcus and protect yourselves." As they prepared to leave, Dr. Walsh called out one more thing. "There's something else you should know. The genetic manipulation. It worked, in a way. You three do share a connection. You'll start to notice it now that you're together. Dreams, feelings, sometimes even thoughts. Don't be afraid of it. It's part of who you are." The three sisters left the clinic with more questions than answers, but at least now they knew the truth. They weren't just sisters. They were survivors of an experiment that someone still wanted to complete, and they would have to work together to stop it. The FBI office in downtown Chicago was bustling with activity when the three sisters arrived. Sarah clutched the flash drive tightly while Isabella had made copies of all their documents. Maria had insisted on calling her husband and warning him to take their children to her mother's house, just to be safe. Agent Patricia Coleman, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and graying hair, listened to their story without interruption. She examined the flash drive, the documents, and the threatening messages. When they finished talking, she leaned back in her chair. "The Genesis Foundation," she said quietly. "We've been tracking them for 3 years. They're not just interested in genetic experiments. They've been kidnapping people with unique genetic conditions. Twins who were separated at birth, anyone who fits their criteria. You 3 are their holy grail, so you believe us?" Maria asked, relief evident in her voice. "I do more than believe you," Agent Coleman said. "We've been looking for concrete evidence against Marcus Garrison for years. This flash drive could be exactly what we need. But I need you to understand something. Once we move against him, he'll know you came to us. We'll need to put you in protective custody." The sisters looked at each other. Sarah thought about her patients at the hospital. Isabella about her husband and her comfortable life. Maria about her children and students. But they all knew there was no choice. "For how long?" Isabella asked. "Until we arrest him and dismantle the entire organization," Agent Coleman replied. "Could be days, could be weeks." They agreed, and within hours their lives were turned upside down. FBI agents escorted each sister to pack essentials. Sarah's small apartment had never felt more like home than in the moment she had to leave it. Isabella's husband was brought in for protection as well, shocked and angry but ultimately understanding. Maria's family was the hardest, explaining to 2 young children why. Mommy had to go away for a while broke her heart. The safe house was a nondescript building in the suburbs, with agents posted at every entrance. The 3 sisters found themselves sharing a living space for the first time in their lives. And that's when strange things began to happen. It started small. Sarah would think about making tea, and Maria would already be boiling water. Isabella would hum a song, and Sarah would find herself knowing the next notes before they were hummed. They began finishing each other's sentences, knowing when one was upset, even when in different rooms. "Dr. Walsh was right," Maria said one evening as they sat together on the couch. "We are connected." Sarah had been skeptical at first, but the evidence was undeniable. "Last night, I dreamed about a yellow house with a red door. There was a swing in the backyard." Isabella and Maria both gasped. "I had the same dream," they said in unison. Agent Coleman visited daily with updates. The FBI had raided several Genesis Foundation locations, but Marcus Garrison remained elusive. They found laboratories, research notes, and evidence of other victims, twins who had been kidnapped and subjected to tests, some who didn't survive. "He's desperate now," Agent Coleman told them. "His followers are being arrested. His funding is being frozen. We think he's going to make one last attempt to get to you 3. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She felt restless, anxious, but the feeling didn't seem entirely her own. She found Isabella and Maria in the kitchen, both wide awake. "Something's wrong," Isabella said. "I feel it too," Maria agreed. "It's like someone's calling us." Sarah wanted to dismiss it as paranoia, but the pull was getting stronger. It wasn't threatening exactly, but insistent, like a frequency only they could hear. Suddenly Maria gasped. "The children. Something's wrong with my children." Before the agents could stop her, she was at the door. "I need to call them. I need to know they're safe." Agent Coleman tried to calm her down, but Maria was beyond reason. The connection the sisters shared seemed to amplify her panic. And soon all 3 were demanding answers. The agent made a call, and her face went pale. "There's been an incident at the location where Maria's family was staying. They're safe, but someone tried to break in. We stopped them." "Who?" Sarah demanded. "Marcus Garrison himself. He was trying to use them as leverage." Sisters felt a cold rage unlike anything they had experienced before. This man had destroyed their biological mother, separated them for 28 years, threatened their lives, and now had gone after innocent children. "We want to help catch him," Isabella said firmly. "He wants us? Let him come get us." Agent Coleman shook her head. "Absolutely not. You're civilians." But Sarah had an idea forming. The connection Dr. Walsh mentioned. What if we could use it? What if Marcus knows about it too? He's been studying his father's work for years. He must know we're connected. Over the next hour, they convinced Agent Coleman to let them try something. If Marcus was obsessed with proving his father's theories about psychic connections between identical siblings, they would give him exactly what he wanted to see.